Beverly Beuermann-King is a stress and wellness expert. She's trained over 30,000 leaders at all levels in organizations over the last 15 years, and many of you will recognize her from her frequent national media appearances.
Beverly Beuermann-King is a stress expert.
Beverly Beuermann-King is a stress and wellness expert behind the Work Smart, Live Smart workshops.
Please help me welcome certified speaking professional Beverly Beuermann-King and SOS from Surviving to Thriving.
In order to survive, they say I must outwit, outplay, outlast. But there are days when I've lost my way and life seems way too fast. There's too much to do and lately I'm always behind. Children fussing, panic-stricken, forms not signed. Traffic jam, meetings late, only part way through. Thinking of lunch, not today, no time even for the loo. Doctor says relax, exercise, I'm feeling really old. Sick today, how did I catch that bloody cold? In order to survive, they say I must outlast, outwit, outplay. How can I find some meaning in my day? Can you tell how I was feeling when I wrote that? Have you felt that way? Have you thought that way? Are you looking for more from your life? When it comes to managing our stress, some of us have failed miserably. Some of us are teetering on the edge, and some of us have survived in spite of ourselves. You and I are faced with a number of challenges, from parenting to technology to living in really challenging times. Previous generations had their challenges too. They struggled for survival. They dealt with war and polio, physical hardships, even the weather threatened their livelihood. But they survived. And they even thrived, and they succeeded because they were able to rely on the experiences of past generations. That doesn't always work for you and I. Previous generations didn't have to go through the same things that we're dealing with today. Many of us have not learned how to look at, deal with, and move beyond life's stressful situations. We were taught reading and writing and arithmetic, but what about the essential skills of living your life without feeling overwhelmed? And we teach our children that hard work is rewarded, yet they're seeing that reward as overload and illness and loneliness. We can't continue down that stressed out path. I believe that we can find a better way. I believe that we can stop stress. We can prevent it from taking hold on us. We can prevent it from having that negative impact on us. So let's get started. In your handout, you'll see that there is a stress thermometer. And you'll see in that handout that the stress thermometer goes all the way from going to explode down to ho-hum. Yeah. Now, where have you been? What's your stress temperature? If you were to look at the last 2 weeks of your life, what words would best describe your life? Close to the edge, crisis, going to explode, ho-hum. Some of you are shaking your head. Some of you can't remember where you were over the last 2 weeks. Some of you are surprised that you even made it this far, right? Are you the one whose coworker is the naysayer to everything that you put out there? Well, we tried that back in 1993 and it didn't work then, so it's not going to work now. Yeah, we've had those people. And could there have been any more reports due? And they were all urgent. Just because they fell behind, now you have to rush to get everything done. And does anyone ever really say thank you anymore? And it's not just work, it's our family life as well. Some of you are caught in that sandwich generation. It's tough enough raising children, let alone being worried about your parents and your grandparents. And it's not just the big things, it's the little things. It's lineups, it's weather, it's traffic, it's laundry, it's lost keys, it's computer glitches. It's all of those little things that get in the way, that cause that frustration and that stress thermometer to rise into the danger zone. And where does your personality fit into this? Are you the perfectionist? Can't delegate it off because nobody does it the way you want it to be done? Any procrastinators in the room? You need to wait till the stress level gets way up here before you start working on things? What about worriers? Any worriers in the room? Stay awake at night thinking about the would-haves, the could-haves, and the should-haves? Our personality can help us or it can hinder us when it comes to dealing with these stressful situations. So where does that all fit? Where does that leave us? Some of you are looking at your stress thermometer and you're thinking, I'm okay. I'm at the bottom of that stress thermometer. My stress is under control. Well, the bottom isn't where we want to be either. Ho-hum means there's no reason to get up in the morning. There's no excitement, there's no energy, there's no challenge. So that's not where we want to be either. What we're aiming for is that middle, where we have just enough stress to keep life exciting and challenging and motivating, but not so much that it's taking us away from the kinds of things that we want to be doing. Sometimes when we think we have it all together, sometimes in life we look at it and goes, everything is just the way we want it to be. And there are probably times, whether you're a manager or a line worker or a parent, where it seems to be pushing the danger zone. Just like in my examples, we need to make sure that we're really specific about what's causing our stress. And when it's all together, our challenge is to make sure that we have more of those days in which we feel motivated and energized, and not so much where we're feeling defeated and helpless and isolated. Stress impacts us. We know that it has an impact on us, right? I'm going to ask you two questions. Where in your body do you feel it, and how do other people know when you're stressed out? Where do you feel it, and how do your coworkers, your friends, your family members, how do they tell when you're stressed out? So you point, where in your body do you feel it? Okay, so we see something. Neck and shoulders is usually the big one. Everything tightens up, it locks up. We walk home at the end of the day with our shoulders attached to our ears. And then I saw kind of in the chest area, where it tightens up, where it feels like somebody's sitting on our chest. We can feel our heart pounding. And I saw some of you do the headaches. It's the tension headaches across the front, or it's the migraines across the back. Anybody for the stomach area? Yeah. It's the heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, constipation, hey, diarrhea. Yeah, you know which commercial I'm talking about, right? It's all that stuff that happens, all that thing you want to share with all the new strangers that are sitting beside you. So all of that stuff, we're open, we can share that kind of stuff, can't we? Now, that's where we feel it. It's everything from our digestion to our muscular system. Anybody have trouble falling asleep at night? Can't fall asleep, can't stay asleep? Or you wake up and you feel like a truck ran over you? Yeah, you felt like you dreamt the whole night through? Now, the better question is, how do your friends, your coworkers, and your family members, how do they know when you're stressed out? What does it look like? Any of you get louder? You maybe get a bit edgier? Yeah. Any of you get sarcastic? None. Not one person in the room. So some of us, any of you use the one-word answers? Fine. And it means anything but fine, or whatever. All of those things that we use. Any of you get quieter? Yeah, you pull away. You want to be by yourself. You want to, stay away from everybody else. Friends and family, coworkers, they know. Have you ever gone to a meeting and you know exactly what kind of a meeting it's going to be just by the atmosphere in the room? Yeah, you can feel it, can't you? Now, I was doing this workshop once, and one of the participants in the workshop said, you know what? I know when I get stressed out. I can feel it in my body. And she said, I know my coworkers can tell because they come up and they ask me. And my family members absolutely know. How many of your family members know just by the way you walk in the door at the end of the day? What room you go to, what you say to them? So she said, my coworkers know, my family members know, but she said, even my dog knows. So I said to her, well, how do you know your dog knows? And she said, well, when it's been a good day, the dog greets me at the door, tail is wagging, happy to see me. But when it's been one of those days, the dog walks up, takes a look, and walks the other way. Smart dog, yeah. We can feel it. It has an impact. And so when we're talking about stress, it's not just an impact on us, it's having an impact on the people around us. The first part of leading a fulfilling life is to be specific. What kinds of things are causing your stress? What is it about work? What is it about your family? The second part is understanding how that stress impacts you, how it changes you. When my son was about 8 months old, I took him home to Grandma and Grandpa's for vacation. Now, there's one thing that I know, that grandparents are very different from when they were parents, right? Something happens to them. So I took my son Taylor home to see Grandma and Grandpa, and my dad thought that he would be helpful and help me put Taylor to bed. He wasn't much help. I think he thought part of his role was to play the tickle games and wind him up as much as he could. Taylor was absolutely loving it, though. He couldn't take his eyes off of his grandpa. And my dad was thoroughly enjoying the role of grandpa. As they were playing on the bed, I looked at my dad, and he looked up at me, and he had tears in his eyes. I was afraid. I had never seen him get teary before. When I asked him what was wrong, he looked at me and he said, "I don't ever remember you being this age. I don't ever remember playing with you like this." Now, frankly, I don't remember much about my dad as I was growing up either. He was a dairy farmer, and the life of a dairy farmer meant that he was always working. Now, he may not be a great dad, but he is an amazing grandpa. When my sons come to visit, he drops absolutely everything to be with them, to talk to them, to play with them, to go fishing with them, to take them on four-wheeler rides to the bush. That day, seeing my dad and my son play together made me realize something. I didn't want to get so caught up in the busyness of life that later I had regrets. I didn't want to get to a point where I said to myself, "I'm sorry I missed that." Are the choices that you're making right now the right ones for you? Are you risking missing those memorable moments? What is it that you value? What brings you satisfaction? What brings you happiness? What keeps you healthy? We need to make these things a priority in our life. But you have to believe that you're worthwhile enough, that your life is worthwhile enough. Now, one of the biggest questions I get is, how do you do that? How do I live the life that I want? For some of us, it's about letting go. It may be letting go of the superhuman syndrome. Do any of these resonate with you? Do you believe you can, should, and must do it all? Or are you able to ask for help? Do you neglect your own needs because other people's are more important? Or are you able to carve out some time for yourself? Or do you believe that if you don't, who will? Or are you able to let it go and let the pieces fall where they may? Sometimes happiness is about letting go. What do you need to let go of? The need to be in control? The need to do it all? The need for approval? Leading a fulfilling life is all about choices. It's all about understanding what choices I have. And I've been studying stress and mental health for years, and I know we have an abundance of choices when it comes to leading our life and dealing with those stressful situations. But I know that those choices can be confusing and overwhelming. That's where the SOS principle comes in. The SOS principle is a series of categories that give us some strategies that help us to be able to live our life, to be able to deal with those stressful situations. They give us the tools in our tool belt so that we can live our life and be healthier and deal better. So let's start. The first S, SOS. The first S stands for situation. What are you going to do about the things that are causing you stress? Can you problem solve them? Can you break them down? Can you get rid of them? Can you let them go? Can you delegate them off to somebody else? Can you negotiate around them? Can you gather up more information so it's easier to solve? Situation. The O. The O stands for ourself. What are you doing to take care of yourself? There's a saying that I like that says, "How thin can I spread myself before I no longer exist?" How thin can I spread myself before I no longer exist? For many of us, we're in that caregiving role, and it's easier to take care of other people, but we often neglect our own needs, don't we? But if we want to be able to take care of the people around us, we have to be able to take care of ourselves. So the O stands for, how do we take care of ourselves? How do we give ourselves a break? How do we minimize the impact that that stress is having on us? So are you eating right? Are you sleeping right? Are you exercising? What are you doing for relaxation? When was the last time that you had so much fun or you got caught up in a hobby that time just slipped away? If you feel it in your neck and shoulders, what are you doing to get rid of it? If you feel it in your stomach, what are you doing to minimize it? Situation, ourself, and then the last S stands for support. Who are you talking to? Who are you venting to? Who are you asking for help from? Who are you socializing with? Who are you playing with? What do you believe in? Who are you connected to? Do you have enough supports in your support circle so that you don't feel isolated and alone with no one to turn to? We need to rely better on our supports. We need to learn how to communicate with our supports. We need to stop assuming that they know what we're thinking, what we're feeling, when we need help. We need to be assertive with our supports, but not get so defensive that sometimes we attack our supporters. We need to be able to say what we mean what we say, but not be mean when we say it. Another quote that I like. Nicholas turned to me. He had tears in his eyes. And he said, "Mummy, you've crumpled my heart. And you can't uncrumple somebody's heart." You see, Nicholas had a very smart teacher, and as a way of teaching them about feelings and friendships and connection, she used the image of a paper heart to show them how fragile our feelings can be and how strong our words can be. In grade 2, they knew that just like it was impossible to uncrumple that paper heart, it was just as impossible to take back a mean or a hurtful word. Life is about connection. It's about reaching out to others and having others reach out to you. Are you building others up, or are you crumpling their hearts? Who are you surrounding yourself with? Those that build you up, or those who are tearing you down? Now, my clients have told me that the SOS principle has transformed the way that they deal with their life. SOS, situation, ourself, support. These 3 questions, what are you going to do about the situation? How are you going to take care of yourself? And who's there to support you? Give you a framework to tackle any of life's situations so that you have more control and that you're living a life filled with more happiness. Now, there's 2 things that I know that are essential when it comes to that SOS principle. 2 of the most important things. The first one is you need to have balance in your life. Do you know what your priorities are? Are you working towards those priorities so that you don't end up with regrets later on in life? The second most important thing is you need to harness your energy. Now, how do you harness your energy? Well, the first one is we need to be able to get rid of that energy, get rid of that stress response out of our body. So we've been sitting for a little while. What I want you to do is to stand up, put your sheets of paper on your chairs or under your chair, either one. You're going to stand up. Some of you have come in from the cold, so we're going to make sure that we get warmed up. Now, what I want you to do is to stand with your feet shoulder width apart. Your arms are hanging comfortably down at your side. All right. Now, what I want you to do, many of you talked about feeling it in your neck and shoulders. That was usually the #1 place where people feel it. So we're going to work on that for a little bit. What I want you to do is to take your chin and place it over your right shoulder. That would be the other right for some of you. All right. And now looking over your left shoulder. And then back to the middle. That's easy enough to do. Now, your shoulders are nice and relaxed. Your shoulders are going to stay down, and you're going to take your right ear and drop it down to your right shoulder. It's your ear that comes down, not your shoulders that come up. So we're going to take our ear, tilting it over to our shoulders. And back up to the middle. Left ear to left shoulder. And back up. After a long day, some of you have lost some of that mobility, haven't you? All right, we're going to do it one more time. Right ear to right shoulder. And back up. Left ear to left shoulder. All right. Now, one of the things I know is not only can we stress our muscles to get them to relax, but we can clench them and then they will relax further. So what you're going to do is you're going to make a fist, and on the count of 3, you're going to bring your shoulders up to your ears. You're going to squeeze until I say stop. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Bring them up. Squeeze, squeeze. Harder, harder. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. And let them go. Ah. Bring them up. Squeeze, squeeze. Harder, 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 harder. Squeeze. And let them go. Right ear to right shoulder. And back up. Left ear to left shoulder. All right. Now that's our neck and shoulders. We should be doing this several times a day just to get rid of the stress that builds up in our neck and shoulders so that those muscles stay nice and long. Now, one of the other things that I know is when we sit a lot, we get kind of stress building up, tension building up in our hip and shoulders. So what I'd like you to do is to take your hands on your hips. If you have back problems, I'd like you to bow out of this one. You don't necessarily need to participate. Okay? Your hands are on your hips. Your knees are shoulder width apart. Or your knees are shoulder width apart. That would be interesting. Your feet are shoulder width apart, and your knees are bent. We'll get the order right, okay? Now, what we're going to do is your shoulders are going to stay stationary, and it's your hips that are going to move around. So what we're going to do is we're all going to go in the same direction. So I want you to imagine that you are now going to thrust your hips out to the 12 o'clock position. Looks like this. Now, some of you are picturing yourself. Can you imagine yourself at work right now? Mm-hmm. People are wondering what you're doing, and you're saying, I'm hanging out. Because this is the hangout position. All right, so we're going to go from 12 o'clock, we're going to push it over to 3 o'clock. Only your hips, your shoulders stay still. It's just your hips that are going out. Now, front row, you get the fun part because everybody's going to go to 6 o'clock. Bums out to the people behind you. Over to 9 o'clock. Back up to the hangout position. All right, we're going to go the other way. 12 o'clock. 9 o'clock. 6 o'clock. 3 o'clock. Back out to the hangout position. All right. The last one we're going to do is for our facial area. Some of you feel it in your jaw area because I saw some of you talking about it in here. Clenching, grinding, you've gone to the dentist. So again, one of the things we know is we can stretch them. So what we're going to do is we're going to give a great big yawn. Show all of your feelings to the people in front of you. Okay. Now the next thing we can do is we can crunch them. So what we're going to do is it's the best sourpuss face that you can possibly imagine, okay? It's like squeezing all of your facial muscles into the end of your nose. And it looks like this. I, too, want you to do that. On the count of 3. Now, to make it fun, turn to the person beside you so they can see this as well. Uh-huh. All right. And yes, we get to enjoy it. On the count of 3, ready, 1, 2, 3, everybody squeeze, squeeze. And relax. Give a great big yawn. Excellent. Have a seat. It doesn't take a whole lot of energy to break that stress response. But we need to figure out where in our body we feel it and then get rid of it. Don't let it build up so that our neck and shoulders become tight and short, or that we feel it in our back and our hips. We need to work it out. We also need to eat right. One of the ways that we can garner that energy is by eating right. Do you know what kinds of foods give you energy? Or do you go right to the caffeines and sugars? Yeah. We need to sleep right. We need between 7 and 9 hours of sleep per night, not per week for some of you. Some of you are on the weekly plan. Per night. And we need to learn to have fun. When was the last time that you laughed so hard that your belly hurt? What's stopping you? When was the last time that you took the time to smell the roses? It was hot. It was August. And I was picking my sons up from daycare. Taylor was about 4 years old. And at 4 years old, he was experimenting with his words. You know, the words they don't want them to say when they're out in public? Yeah. And I was in a bad mood. And I just wanted to get in the house without anything happening. And so from the back seat, I hear, "Mommy, guess what?" Oh, and I cringed. And I thought, you know what? I'm pulling into the driveway. I'm just going to crank the radio up. But then the mummy guilt took over. So as I pulled the car to a stop, I turned to him and I said, "What?" Yeah, probably with that same kind of attitude. And he looked at me and he said, "Mummy, your sunflowers are awesome." Awesome was his new word of the day. That was pretty cool. Now, we had planted those sunflowers at the beginning of the spring, and we had weeded them and we watered them, but I hadn't really looked at them. Not in the same way that he looked at them. They were awesome. They were 12 feet tall, and they reached into the sky, and they were awesome. You know, if you look for the awful and the disheartening, you can find that. But if you make it a point of looking for the awesome, you can find that too. And when you look for the awesome, you're present, you're engaged, and you're on the road to true happiness. We can do more than just survive. Joy, happiness, and success are all possible if we use that SOS approach. What are you doing about the situation? How are you taking care of yourself? Who's there to support you? It can help us to transform the way that we live our life. In order to survive, they say I must outwit, outlast, outplay. There must be more to this game. SOS. Situation, ourself, and support. What am I going to do about the things that are causing my stress? How am I going to take care of myself? And who's there to support me? 3 little letters, 3 simple words, 3 amazing questions that can help you transform the way that you deal with your life. Thank you. We all experience stress, from the mom and pop shop to the largest corporation, from the single parent to the grandparent. Healthy environments foster active and competitive people. Organizations that manage stress have a better bottom line. Stress management is not easy, but it can be simplified using my SOS principle. I'll help your leaders and teams clarify what they need to do to transform your company and their lives.